President Trump is in Vietnam right now as part of his 12-day trip to Asia. There's been quite a bit of armchair criticism of the president's actions in China from pundits, comedians, and politicians. But how does that compare to what he actually said today? Let's watch.
Trump almost got on his knees, pulled out a ring, and proposed to the Chinese premier.
I spoke openly and directly with President Xi about China's unfair trade practices.
It'd be more accurate to say Trump has spent his visit to China with nose in butt.
We can no longer tolerate these chronic trade abuses, and we will not tolerate them.
And it's one thing to not blame them. It's another thing to praise them for ripping America off.
I expressed our strong desire to work with China to achieve a trading relationship that is conducted on a truly fair and equal basis.
You can almost hear the leadership of the Chinese government laughing from China to America.
The current trade imbalance is not acceptable. We are not going to let the United States be taken advantage of anymore. I am always going to put America first.
Yeah, it sounds like he's really kissing up to the Chinese there. And joining us now for reaction is Lieutenant Colonel Tony Shaffer. He's a former intel operative and vice president of the London Center for Policy Research. I knew when he was there with Xi, with all the pageantry, he was doing the Trump strategy. Right. And tell us about what your impression was about how he handled himself there and all of the armchair critics.
Well, look, I liked his snark when he said, look, you took advantage of us. You better get over it and move on. I think it was a clear warning, and everybody completely here misinterpreted that. The other thing, Laura, they showed him a great deal of deference. I mean, he's the first leader that's been to the Forbidden City. That's just not done, and yet this is completely missed by the mainstream media. It's all about snark. The other thing that he said very clearly, now I don't know this for a fact, but I have a feeling that one of the things that he was probably suggested to threaten is their most favored nation trade status. That's huge. I mean, if you start threatening how they are able to get money from us, and he's saying we need to balance things, that is in their face, but in a polite way. So I would argue he's been hard to the point of where now he has to open up the door and say it's time to talk.
An American president, at least not to my knowledge in my lifetime, has not ever gone to China and looked the Chinese leader in the eye and said, we're on to you. We know what you're doing. Yeah. And I worked for President Reagan. I mean, we did, obviously China was a member of the WTO back then, but in Clinton, Bush, didn't happen. Right. Didn't happen. So I think that was actually so refreshing. And he kind of said, oh, I don't blame you. And he goes over to Vietnam. You don't think the Chinese were watching him right when he lands in Vietnam? And it was happened at 3:30 in the morning.
That's the other point I was going to make. The Reagan folks, I think, used to prepare. Bud McFarland's a friend of mine. They used to always spin President Reagan up to focus on the man, play the man. And I think that's what President Trump was doing here. He's playing the Chinese leadership. He's got to play them. He can't play the issues. So the other thing is now he goes to Vietnam and says, oh, by the way, we want to have a partnership with you. The other thing he's got in his pocket right now is the fact that Vietnam has a great economy, the South Koreans have a great economy, the Japanese have a great economy. We really don't need the trade with the Chinese to the level we do.
He wants to do one-on-one, bilateral trade agreements, get out of these mega deals where we always get the short end of the stick. And that's to me, that's doing trade the smart way.
And this is fulfilling his election promise. That by doing this, walking away from TTP, bringing over the Bernie folks, I know a lot of Bernie folks who voted for President Trump because that was unfair. And now I think he's trying to bring back the potential for trade, which will allow for American manufacturing to get off its butt and start doing more again. So I see this as a direct link to what he did a year ago to be elected, to start fulfilling these promises.
At the same time, he did announce a bunch of deals, $250 billion in deals with joint ventures, which is not, it sounds big, but the big thing is trade. Right. And I think I think we'd have enough of the comedians doing foreign policy analysis. Tony, thank you so much.